All right, good afternoon, everybody. We will get started now. My name is Isaac Reichman. I'm the Director of Public Information at the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. And you're here at today's webinar, the 2021 Expanded Outdoor Dining Program. I'm joined today by colleagues from here at BACP and also from other departments around the city. So if you folks can really quickly introduce yourself and we can test your audio. We have Amanda Weiland, also from BACP. She's here with our liquor team. Amanda, are you on?
I'm on.
Great. And we have Tony Bertuca, also with BACP. He heads our public way use team. Tony, are you there?
I just got on, yes.
Great, thank you, Tony. We have Jennifer Johnson Washington. She's here with the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Jen? Jen, I saw you on mute, but we didn't hear you. So can you try one more time?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now. Thank you. We have Brian Gallardo with the Chicago Department of Transportation. Brian?
Yes, this is Brian Gallardo with the CDOT Permitting Office.
Thank you, Brian. And then finally, we have Rob Foytjic, who is here with Choose Chicago. Rob, are you on?
I am, yeah. Hey, Isaac.
Great. Thanks. So we will get started. This webinar is going to be recorded. We're going to provide a quick, here's the agenda for today's webinar. We're going to provide a quick update on data and where we are. We're going to talk briefly about the industry guidelines. That's very important before we get into the specifics on the expanded outdoor dining permits and other outdoor options. And obviously, we have the experts from all the different departments here. So we want to make sure that a big portion of today will be to answer your questions. So please, if anybody has any questions, please use the chat function on WebEx for questions. I'm typing into the chat right now. Again, please use the chat for questions. If you do not have, if you have questions that aren't answered, anything that really doesn't come up or we're unable to answer it, later I'll show you guys some specific contact information. But you can always send emails to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. That's your go-to place for anything related to business, any questions you have on the regulations, on everything related to businesses here in the city of Chicago. So again, we're going to spend the bulk of today on the expanded outdoor dining permit, while also touching on other outdoor options for bars and restaurants as we start getting into the warmer months. First, though, I want to make sure to kind of guide this conversation by providing a quick update on where we're at in the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in front of you is the reopening risk matrix that the Chicago Department of Public Health has put together to focus on the 4 main data metrics that the health department is looking at to evaluate and understand our reopening. Important thing here is we are doing great. Over the last few months, things have gotten a lot better, but over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've started to see a little bit of a stabilization of our increase. And I apologize. I do need to correct one of those numbers there. And we have started to see that cases have started to go back up ever so slightly. Hospitalizations have gone back up ever so slightly. So we want to preach caution as we're entering more and more stages of our reopening. And that's why this is so important, because we know since the beginning of COVID, even as indoor dining is allowed, outdoor is far and away the safest way to patron our bars and our restaurants. So even as we get deeper and deeper into COVID, we want to be stressing outdoor dining as really the safest and best option. And we want to make sure that bars and restaurants have full access to that, which is why, again, today's presentation is important. I'm going to provide a quick overview of where we're at on all of the regulations for bars and restaurants, again, before getting into the specifics of the expanded outdoor dining permit. First, indoor capacity is strictly limited to 50% or 50 people per room or space. Larger places can use plexiglass to divide a room into multiple spaces. Establishments that don't serve food must make sure that food is available for patrons at all times that indoor service is offered. Outdoor service is allowed under the existing regulations, which we'll talk about again in a little bit more detail. Tables must be spaced following COVID guidelines. That's currently again at 6 feet. Everyone must be wearing a face covering. The only exception is if patrons are seated and actively eating or drinking. That's the rule, whether indoors or outdoors. And they must especially be wearing masks whenever they interact with staff, and that mask must cover the nose and the mouth. Customers must remain seated. Again, this is a rule indoors or outdoors, whether at a bar or a restaurant or at or in an event. Whenever they're eating or drinking, must be seated. This is a big thing that we're looking for. Again, whether indoors or outdoors. Maximum table size must follow current COVID restrictions, which is currently 6 people, either indoors or outdoors. Patrons can sit at the bar with no more than 6 people per party and 6 feet between parties. Dancing and anything else really that involves congregating is not permitted. You can have pool, darts, things like that open, provided that patrons are not eating or drinking while participating. Finally, we must follow the reduced hours. That means closed for on-site service by 1 a.m. at the absolute latest. However, and we'll talk about this a little bit further on in this presentation, sidewalk cafes, outdoor patios, expanded outdoor dining areas, they must operate within their established hours of operation in accordance with their approved permit terms. So every different type of outdoor permit you might use has specific hours built in, and then some establishments might have even different hours based on their specific locations. So again, wanted to provide a quick overview of where we're at with the current regulations here in the city of Chicago. Obviously, these are subject to change. Anytime that we have any changes, we'll be sharing those via email. We'll be holding webinars. We're going to be making sure we're going to be calling bars and restaurants directly. We're going to be making sure that folks are fully aware of these regulations. So, as I said, the safest place to be is always going to be outside. So as we're getting into those warmer months, we want to make sure that bars and restaurants have the opportunity to operate outdoors. So as a reminder, what do we mean when we say outdoors? First, some options include rooms with retractable roofs and indoor spaces that have tables that are within 8 feet of open walls, provided that that wall is 50% open. So again, this is the same as it was last summer. Throughout the time, if you have a table that is within 8 feet of a wall that is at least 50% open, that counts as outdoors. You don't need any additional permit or license beyond your retail food or your liquor license. And those people that sit next to that open wall do not count towards your indoor capacity limit. So again, we really encourage people that have this opportunity to take advantage of it. Obviously, you do need to have that wall actually open. It's not enough to just have the windows. You obviously need to have those windows open. So if a patron, wants them closed, asks to have them closed, that would now count as indoors and not outdoors. Rooftops and permanent outdoor patios. So a lot of establishments might have a permanent outdoor patio or a rooftop. Those would need an outdoor patio license from BACP if it is something that you are looking to operate permanently. You can use the expanded outdoor dining if you're doing something temporary, but if you're looking to do something permanent, you would need an outdoor patio license. If you're not serving alcohol, you do not need an outdoor patio license. However, the space must be included in the square footage as part of the retail food establishment license. Operating on the sidewalk. If you need a sidewalk cafe permit from BACP for if you're a retail food establishment, any restaurant. If you do not serve alcohol, then you would need an expanded outdoor dining permit to operate on the sidewalk. Finally, and this is the new thing that was created for COVID, if you want to operate on the street and or private property temporarily, then you need the expanded outdoor dining permit. And that's what we're going to talk about today, that expanded outdoor dining permit, which was created specifically for COVID. So, as we said, it was created to allow bars and restaurants to operate outdoors temporarily last year, and it has been extended through the end of 2021. Again, the expanded outdoor dining permit program has been extended to the end of 2021. So if you have a current expanded outdoor dining permit and it is nearing an expiration, you do need to renew. Many of them will have nearing expiration dates. And if you want to renew it, you need to email sepermits@cityofchicago.org. I'm going to type that into the chat as well. That's sepermits@cityofchicago.org. Please include your DOT number if you are emailing to extend your permit. If you previously had an expanded outdoor dining permit, but then you stopped operating for any reason, let's say you had one back in the summer, but as it started getting cold, you stopped operating, then you need to reapply. Again, if you stopped operating for any reason and you do not have a current expanded outdoor dining permit, then you need to reapply, and we'll walk through the application process. Or if you never got an expanded outdoor dining permit last year and you want to operate new this year, then you will obviously need to apply for that as well. So what is the expanded outdoor dining permit? Again, this is a temporary permit. It's been extended through the end of 2021. It's a permit issued by DCASE, CDOT, and BACP, all three departments that are on this webinar today. All are here to help you understand this. There's three different options for the expanded outdoor dining permit. First is street closure. If you want to actually close a street temporarily through the expanded outdoor dining permit. If that's what you want, you need to apply either as a chamber, an SSA, a business service organization, or 3 or more establishments applying together. Then you could apply for street closure. You would have multiple bars or restaurants participating in that. Second option is an individual bar or restaurant can apply to temporarily operate on private property, such as parking lots or areas that maybe would be an outdoor patio temporarily, and you want to kind of set up in a parking lot a space like that, then you can apply as an individual bar or restaurant. The third option, individual liquor-only establishments, bars, taverns, breweries, they can apply to operate in the sidewalk space immediately in front of their establishment. Great. I wanted to take a quick pause. I'm getting some notification that folks are unable to see my screen. Can folks confirm that they can see my screen right now?
I can see your screen.
You can see your screen.
Great, thank you. If you're having any trouble seeing it, I do apologize for that. This is being recorded, and we will send it out after. It might be an issue on your end. Great. So again, there are 3 different options. Liquor-only establishments can use the expanded outdoor dining permit in order to operate immediately in front of their establishment. If you serve food, we already have a process for that, and that's the Sidewalk Cafe permit. So I'm going to talk through all 3 of these options, go into more details, again, before opening it up for questions. Great. Overview of the permit. There is no permit fee, but if you are serving liquor, there will be a temporary liquor license fee. Permit is for a term of 180 days, but it can be renewed. Obviously, that's why we're talking about. A program is overseen by 3 departments. That's DCASE, Cultural Affairs and Special Events, BACP, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, and the Department of Transportation. However, your applications are reviewed by a number of other departments to ensure safety. That includes OEMC, the Office of Emergency Management and Communication, the fire department, the police department, and the local aldermen. So it is not just our 3 departments that are reviewing them, especially if there's any sort of public safety concern. Street closure, obviously, that's something that is going to be reviewed closely by OEMC, fire department, and the police department. So I'm going to go through all 3 of these options in a little bit of detail. First, if you want to actually close a street, your application must be submitted by a chamber, an SSA, business service organization, or 3 or more establishments operating together. At least 50% of participating establishments must serve food. So you need to have, therefore, obviously, then food would need to be available within the full space. It cannot just be 3 bars that don't serve food all operating together. So each application will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis for hours of operation, how big the street closure is, et cetera, what days, things like that. The application is responsible for type 3 barricades that are required for street closure. Sorry, the applicant is responsible for those. And they must maintain a 14-foot fire lane. So yes, the street can be closed, but you need to maintain a 14-foot minimum fire lane. If you're interested in learning more about your local chamber, please feel free to email us for that or check out chicago.gov/NBDC. You can find out what the local chamber or business service organization in your area might be. Again, we had many chambers, bars, restaurants taking advantage of this last year, and we hope that that's the case this year as well. The second option is expanding into private property. So this allows for temporary, again, temporary, this is not a permanent creation, into private property, such as parking lots or courtyards, areas like that. These can be submitted by individual restaurants or bars. If you are expanding into a parking lot and you do not serve food, you must identify a food partner so that food is available for patrons during all hours of operation. What are hours of operation? They're 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. if you serve food, and 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. for liquor-only establishments. They are subject to additional licensing requirements. That's the standard. There may be additional requirements. If liquor is being served, the property must be adjacent to the establishment. We got a lot of questions about this last year. We cannot have you walking alcohol down the street to a parking lot. So if liquor is being served, the private property that you're using for your expansion must be adjacent to the establishment. Finally, you can use the expanded outdoor dining permit to expand onto the sidewalk. Again, we already have the Sidewalk Cafe for restaurants, but if you don't serve food, you can use the expanded outdoor dining permit to expand onto the sidewalk immediately in front of their establishment. Again, retail food establishments should be using the Sidewalk Cafe permit. Just for like option 2, you must identify a food partner so that food is available at all times. The sidewalk area, just like for sidewalk cafes, must leave a 6-foot clearance, and you must have barriers erected around the seating area that are 27 inches high or less above the ground to provide cane detection. And you need an entrance to that area that's 3 to 5 feet wide. And the hours of operation are 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Great. Couple questions that are common, a couple frequently asked questions here on the expanded outdoor dining permit. Can bars be set up outside? No. All drinks must be poured, mixed, made inside the licensed establishment. You cannot set up a bar outside. Additionally, no entertainment is allowed, but you cannot set up bands, DJs, or other forms of entertainment. No stage or live entertainment is allowed. Right. And I apologize using want to clarify here about tents on the public right of way. This is something that we did. This is something that we did begin to allow over the winter. Was having tents on the public right of way. They can be used on private property. The Department of Buildings has specific guidelines related to this. If you have any questions, please reach out there. The important thing when it comes to a tent is that it has at least 2 sides open so that it is considered outdoors. Otherwise, it is considered indoors. You must submit a security plan, which is reviewed by the police department, and the applicant is responsible for security. So how to apply? Applications, again, are submitted through DCASE. You go to chicago.gov/DCASE and click on the special event permits button. You need to submit a floor plan or a site plan, a security plan, a certificate of insurance, and a city special event and state special use liquor license application if you are going to be serving alcohol, with applicable certificate of liquor liability insurance. Obviously, there's a lot of different parts here, and obviously there's a lot of different parts here. So, and a big part of why we're here is to answer those questions. Here's some specific questions though. If you have any questions specifically about this expanded outdoor dining permit, you can email chaidining@cityofchicago.org. If you have any questions specifically about the traffic plan, rerouting of traffic, things like that, you can email c.permitsupport@cityofchicago.org. If you have any liquor license questions, you can contact Brian Knipper, who's at BACP. His email's up there. And again, if you're looking for contact information for your local chamber, you can find it at chicago.gov/NBDC. And you can always, as you see in the bottom here, email BACP outreach@cityofchicago.org. Finally, I want to provide a quick update, and Rob, as I said, Rob Foytik is here from Choose Chicago, can provide a little bit more detail. You may have heard that just last week, the mayor and Choose Chicago announced the new Chicago Alfresco program. So this is a new initiative for neighborhoods to expand and reimagine the public way. This is something that is more for permanent setups, long-term treatment, new structures on the public way, beyond what would typically be allowed in the Sidewalk Cafe or EOD permit. So if this is something you're interested, you may want to consider submitting a Chicago Alfresco proposal. Chambers, SSAs, or other nonprofit neighborhood organizations may apply. Regardless of whether or not you participate in the Alfresco program, your organization or business will still need to obviously follow this, EOD process in order to use the public way for either intermittent or long-term dining closures. And Rob, is there anything you want to add specifically about Chicago Alfresco?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Isaac. I appreciate that. We're really excited to be partnering with the city on this program. The city, of course, will be reviewing the proposals to expand the public way and create new public areas. And Choose Chicago does have some grant funding to help grow those outdoor areas. We will be focusing most of our funds on the south and west sides, but there are other funds available as well. So take a look at chicagoalfresco.com. You'll be able to find some information about the application procedure and a link over to CDOT's website, as well as information for chambers that are interested in applying for grant funding from Choose Chicago. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Rob. And I believe if you go to chicagoalfresco.com, there's a webinar this Friday specifically on the Chicago Alfresco program. So if anyone wants more information on this new program, how to participate, how to apply, recommend A, that you check out the website, and B, that you check out that webinar again this Friday. Real quick, I see a number of questions come in, and we will be getting to those questions. I wanted to provide a quick update on the Sidewalk Cafe process. Again, this webinar today is specifically focusing on the expanded outdoor dining permit, but we do have Tony Bertuca, who heads our Public Way Sidewalk Cafe team. A quick update on the Sidewalk Cafe. Again, if you are a restaurant and you want to expand directly in front of or adjacent to your establishment, you need a Sidewalk Cafe permit. Typically, these Sidewalk Cafe permits end most years at the end of February. This year, we've extended them 3 extra months to the end of May. So anyone who has a Sidewalk Cafe permit from the 2020 season, that permit will stay in effect until May 31st, 2021. And for the new permits that'll be issued in 2021, all of the reforms that we implemented last year will still be in place. This means a 75% permit fee reduction. It means you can extend your Sidewalk Cafe in front of a neighboring business. And there's an expedited permit issuance process. So permits do not need to go through City Council before they are issued. If you have any questions specifically on Sidewalk Cafe, again, Tony is on today if anyone has any questions there. You can also email publicwayuse@cityofchicago.org. Great. I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully many of folks that are on today were on last year. It's a very similar process to last year. As a reminder, if you have a current expanded outdoor dining permit that is set to expire, please email sepermits@cityofchicago.org to renew. If you had an expanded outdoor dining permit and you've stopped operating, or you never have had one, then you do need to apply new. And you can do that at chicago.gov/dcase. Now, again, want to open it up for questions. Please submit your questions via the chat. I did see a number of them come in. Great. The first question, I think, Jen, if you can answer this. Can an establishment use the sidewalk on the side of their building if they are expanding into the sidewalk with the EOD? So if they are a bar or tavern and expanding into the sidewalk, can they use the one on the side of the building if they are on a corner?
Brian G, correct me if I'm wrong, that as long as it's adjacent to the property, they can use that also as part of their sidewalk permit. Is that what it is that they're asking?
Yeah, so if you're on a corner, you can operate on either. But if you're operating on the sidewalk, you still need a sidewalk cafe permit from BACP. But to my understanding, there's no restriction as to which sidewalk you're on, as long as it meets all the requirements.
Great, and yeah, and as a reminder, if you are operating with food, then you would need a sidewalk cafe. But again, the expanded outdoor dining permit is allowing for places without food to operate on the sidewalk. And Jen, I believe this question is for you. What's the rule on closing of a street for the EOD? Last year, we had to have 3 or more businesses, even if chambers were applying. Is that still the case?
Yes, that remains in effect. To close a city street requires 3 establishments or more applying together.
Great. So even if it is the chamber itself submitting the application, they need to have at least 3 participants?
That's correct.
Thank you, Jen. Great. This next question, I believe this is either for Tony or Brian. Can you have a canopy overhead on a sidewalk?
Tony, yes, you can. For a sidewalk cafe, there are some limitations and there are some other requirements. So not that a lot of people fall under this, but if that canopy / tent is over 400 square feet, you're required to get a Department of Building permit. Most of them are not that big, but if they are, they need that permit. If they have a valid sidewalk cafe permit and they want to put a tent or some kind of weathering structure in it, 1, it has to be within the structure, meaning your cafe barriers. 2, it cannot be attached to the barriers. 3, it cannot be attached to the concrete. So basically it has to be a freestanding structure within your cafe without changing the dimensions, and it can't extend outside. No part of it can extend outside of that cafe barrier permit. Okay, so if your sidewalk cafe allows for a 20 by 5 and your barriers, and that's the stamped plans that have been approved, what you would need to do if you still have a valid permit is provide us a new layout for us to stamp off on, showing that you're going to be putting some kind of weathering structure in there.
Thank you, Tony. This question, I believe I can answer. Tony, please correct me if I misspeak. Question is, does the sidewalk cafe permit price reduction apply to renewals or only first-time applicants? So that 75% fee reduction applies to both renewals and first-time applicants, correct, Tony?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Great. And Amanda, I believe this question is for you. Do drinks have to be prepared inside? Can cold, sealed drinks be stored in the outdoor expanded area?
So all drinks have to be prepared in the licensed premises inside, and you cannot store any alcoholic beverages in the EOD area. You can't have coolers full of beer in the EOD area. Everything has to come from inside.
Thank you, Amanda. This next question, I believe, is for a combination of Tony and Brian. Can a Sidewalk Cafe permit be used for pop-up businesses? So I assume that question means for businesses that do not serve food. Now, I know the Sidewalk Cafe permit cannot be used, but Brian, I understand that there is some, can you kind of answer that question? Do you have anything to add from CDOT's perspective about pop-up businesses on the sidewalk? Is that something that's permitted?
So the EOD program is specific to food establishments. I guess I would want to know specifically what do you mean by a pop-up business?
So if we can that individual has that question, can you please just email it to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org? I'm typing that into the chat, and we can follow up and get you a specific answer to that question. Great. The next question, can we please relist the individual contact to the assist? I'm going to pull back up this page. Here's where you have various different contact information. Again, that email on the bottom, BACP Outreach, you can always use that. If you're not sure who to ask, you can always ask that email, and we'll make sure to get you the right question. Right. Here's a question. Here's a question, Jen, if you can handle this, at least the first one, can you use the space in front of our business as well as the business next door for an EOD? So can you use an EOD to expand in front of a business next door if they allow
it? I believe we are allowing establishments to extend to the neighboring property with permission of that property. So yes, and it's on a case by case. So we have to see the location and that you have permission to extend to the neighboring property.
Great. And Tony, this question's for you. What about coffee shops? Can a coffee shop open outdoor seating for your guests in front of the store through a Sidewalk Cafe permit?
If the coffee shop has a retail food establishment license, they can get a Sidewalk Cafe permit. And then depending on where you're locating those outdoor seating, obviously, if it's on private property, it doesn't come through the Sidewalk Cafe program. If it is on public way, it goes to the Sidewalk Cafe program.
Great, thank you, Tony. And for that individual that has application questions about that, you can find the application and more information on BACP's website. That's chicago.gov/BACP. More information about this season's permits will be coming soon. Great. Last Friday, and Rob, I believe this is a question for you. Last Friday, it was reported that there were city grants available for restaurants for outdoor dining. Is this part of Chicago Alfresco? I will say, I will answer kind of the first half for this and then point it to you, Rob. I believe what this individual is referencing is there was a program that did get initial city council approval to provide some sort of grants for outdoor dining. That program is still very much in the preliminary stages. However, what passed was just approval for the funding for that. So more information on that will be coming soon. Rob, can you provide a little bit, I know you mentioned it briefly, but a little bit more detail on what might be available through Chicago Alfresco?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Isaac. And I think there's been some confusion. There's some nuance to the announcement that was maybe missed by several press outlets that we've attempted to correct. Unfortunately, the money that's within the grant opportunities from Choose Chicago to help create more outdoor spaces, those are only available to nonprofit neighborhood organizations, and businesses are unfortunately not eligible. So if there's a part of your neighborhood that you think that would, it would be great to increase foot traffic, maybe, if it's making a plaza or closing a road, right, that's area you can expand a sidewalk cafe into or something like that. Those are all things that would be considered for the Chicago Alfresco program, and you should talk to your local chamber or economic development corporation. Unfortunately, no materials for individual restaurants can be covered by the grant opportunity, but it can cover things like surface treatments, general use structures, planters, safety equipment, that sort of thing. Like I said, there's more information on chicagoalfresco.com, but you're able to find all of the application details for CDOT as well as the grant opportunity there. And as Isaac mentioned, there will be more information coming about some potential help for restaurants, but unfortunately that is not available yet, nor are the guidelines kind of put together around that just yet. But stay tuned.
Great, thanks, Rob. I got a question here wanting to know about the alfresco dining webinar. Where can we register? So I did just quickly check. If you go to the Chicago Alfresco site, there's a link to go to the CDOT website, Chicago Department of Transportation, where you actually can find information about how to apply, timeline, things like that. If you click that link, you will see information for a webinar that will be held this Friday at 3 p.m. That'll be held by the Department of Transportation for more details specifically about how to apply. So again, you can find that from the Chicago Alfresco website. Question here, will parking meter fees be waived again this year? I believe either Brian or Jen, can you handle that?
So the final decision is up to the Department of Finance, but as so far, they have continued that practice.
Thank you. Question here for Tony. Can an extended sidewalk cafe be interrupted by a building entrance walkway? So if you're extending your sidewalk cafe in front of, I believe this question is to the building next door, can it be interrupted by a building entrance?
Hi, this is Tony. No, it can't. The change in the rule was continuous from your property onto your neighbor's property, and most of the time that is feasible, and 99% of the time it's mostly on the curbside. If it is in front of a building, it cannot have an active license, and it cannot block windows. It can't block, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. It can't block windows of an active license. And if it's all brick, it's allowable. The rule of thumb is that there's notification to the building, the property that you're going on to. Now, technically, you don't need their permission, but we are asking that it does give notification to that neighbor of yours that the Sidewalk Cafe is going out there. So that's why most of the time it's done curbside, because of entrances can't be blocked, doors can't be blocked, and windows of active businesses can't be blocked.
Great, thank you, Tony. Again, anyone who has specific Sidewalk Cafe questions, you can always email us at publicwayuse@cityofchicago.org. Question, I believe, either for Jen or for Brian. Can you talk through the process for extending your cafe and to the end of the sidewalk through the EOD and rerouting pedestrians to the curb lane? Can businesses apply for that, or does it need to be from chambers?
The individual business can do that. Again, if it's a food establishment, they would also still need their sidewalk cafe permit, and they would need permission from BACP to extend the footprint of their sidewalk cafe. And then CDOT, on a case-by-case basis, will review the specific location to make sure that it's not going to impact things like turn lanes and other things that would negatively impact traffic or be unsafe. But the individual businesses can apply. They do not have to do it through a chamber.
Thank you. Question, I've had a couple questions come in related to fees. One here specifically, for those of us renewing the EOD, will there be more fees, or is it just a request to renew and then we get an updated permit? Jen, can you kind of walk through the full process for renewing?
So when if your current EOD permit is about to expire and you're requesting an extension, there's no fee for the permit. The fee would come in if you need your liquor extended for another 180 days. You will have to pay that fee.
And either Jen or Amanda, what is the liquor fee?
The liquor fee is $150 for a 180-day permit for the city. On the state side, because you obviously need the city license and the state license to operate. On the state side, it's $150 the first time you apply. As of now, the state has not been charging for an extension. I don't know if that's going to change, but right now they have not been charging. So it's just the $150 to the city for an additional 180 days.
Thank you, Amanda. And this next question is a question about tents. I can handle that question. I misspoke earlier, and I apologize. I did not provide an updated part of the slide. Tents are allowed on the expanded outdoor dining permit. I'm happy to provide additional details on tents. I do apologize. That was my fault. I used old text there. They were not originally allowed, but they were changed to be allowed. And there is specific guidance from the Department of Buildings on that. So if you have any questions specifically, please send that via email, and we're happy to get you that answer. How are chambers supposed to handle sponsorships by liquor companies, distributions? Are restaurants allowed to accept sponsorship funds? I'll punt that to either Jen or Amanda. I'm not sure if that's something we have specific guidance on.
I don't know if Jen has any specific guidance. I can tell you just from the liquor standpoint, there's a lot of problems that you're going to run into if distributors or manufacturers want to do sponsorships from the state side. The state has very specific rules about what is allowed and what is not allowed. City doesn't regulate that, but you should reach out to the State Liquor Control Commission with questions about distributors or manufacturers doing any sort of sponsorship.
And we should also note that there's no activations allowed within the EOD area. So likely a liquor distributor would want to be doing some type of activity in the EOD area that would not be allowed.
Great, thank you. I believe this question is best for Brian. Does an outdoor dining area need to be gated or enclosed? What sort of structures do you need around the outdoor dining area?
It depends on your particular layout. If it's a full street closure, then yes, the applicant would be required to put up DOT approved traffic devices like Type 3 barricades and things like that as warning devices for traffic in the area. If it's just on the sidewalk, like a sidewalk cafe, I think that there's nothing different than what you would normally do for a sidewalk cafe requirement. If you are looking to do something to use the curb lane, as was asked about a few minutes ago, you would have to put up Jersey barriers or something in that vein for protection to reroute the pedestrians. So it depends on which specific layout you're referring to. But yes, there would be certain requirements depending on the level of impact you would be having on the public way. If it's just the sidewalk, as long as you're leaving a portion of the sidewalk open, there's very little. But the more you encroach on the street itself, then there would be more requirements for what type of devices you would need to include in your layout for safety.
Thank you. Question here either for Jen
Hey,
or
Isaac,
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Tony.
Yes.
Just to clarify, so on a standard sidewalk cafe permit, I need a 6-foot pedestrian path, and the sidewalk cafe needs to be fully enclosed by a barrier. They are allowed 2 3 to 5 foot entrances per section, and that's the only openings that can be not part of the enclosure of the side on a standard sidewalk cafe.
Thank you, Tony.
And those barriers can be no smaller than 2 feet and no higher than 3 feet.
Great, thanks. Question here again, either for Jen or for Brian. Where is the DOT number? What is the DOT number and where can I find it? I assume this is for someone who has a current expanded outdoor dining permit.
It's the top left-hand corner of your permit. And it's a number that starts with DOT, followed by usually 6 numbers. So top left side of your permit.
Thank you. This question, I believe, again for Brian. For businesses interested in using the entire sidewalk for dining and rerouting pedestrians to the curb lane, businesses will have a liquor license through the Sidewalk Cafe permit, or they'll have their standard Sidewalk Cafe permit. Are they able to then get the EOD permit for the curb lane without the liquor portion? Do you have, Brian, can you answer that? And I might ask you, person asking that question, to maybe send that via email. Because I think when we start getting into the specifics, we'd have to kind of address those in a case-by-case basis.
So, and BACP can jump in here as well, but if it's an existing sidewalk cafe, they would still need permission to expand that to the full sidewalk, and BACP would need to approve that as well. CDOT, we would review again to see if there's going to be any negative or unsafe impacts to allowing pedestrians to be routed into the curb lane. The end part of that question there about liquor licenses, that would come back to the BACP portion of things. If you had a liquor license through the original application, then I would expect you'd want to renew that. But it's technically separate from the EOD permit itself. However, if you did not have a liquor license, there may be language added to the permit to specifically state that you cannot serve liquor until it's renewed.
Great, thank you.
And then from the Sidewalk Cafe aspect, and we've been working very well together with CDOT on this. We're asking for that CDOT permit to be approved before we approve our plan, because we want to make sure that the CDOT permit is in order, and they're allowing it because there may be areas that it's not feasible to have that curb lane pedestrian path. So if you're changing what you have, or it's new and you're thinking about encompassing the entire sidewalk, and you want that pedestrian path should be taken care of before you submit your Sidewalk Cafe permit application.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So to that,
Isaac,
yeah.
Can I add just quickly on because there was a specific question about the liquor. If you are approved to expand your Sidewalk Cafe to cover the entire sidewalk and you are a food and liquor licensee, that Sidewalk Cafe expansion covers your liquor liability. You don't have to get a separate EOD liquor license to cover your entire sidewalk if you've expanded your Sidewalk Cafe permit.
Thank you. And to that, one last question here, Brian, do you need an EOD in instances like this? Would you need, if the Sidewalk Cafe permit allowed you to extend all the way to the curb, would you need an EOD permit for the routing of the pedestrian traffic onto the curb lane?
Yes, yeah. So as BACP was just stating previously, that comes first. So if you want to close the sidewalk, they have to provide the pedestrian path in the curb lane, and that review, we would take a look at that to make sure that it was a safe option. If that is the case, we would then refer you back to BACP to make sure that they're okay with your layout and increasing the size of your footprint of your Sidewalk Cafe.
Thank you. Tony, can I ask you to please repeat the dimensions of the Sidewalk Cafe barrier requirements and the dimensions of the entry-exit area?
Your entrance per ADA requirements have to be between 3 and 5 feet. For each section of your cafe, you're allowed 2 exit/entrances. They have to be between 3 and 5 feet. Your Sidewalk Cafe barrier has to be a minimum 2 feet and a maximum of 3 feet, with something 27 inches or lower for cane detection.
Great, thank you, Tony. Again, if anyone has any additional questions, obviously we have all the experts here today to help answer those questions. We'll stay on for another couple minutes. You can see here on this page all the different contact information. As you can see on the bottom, your general email, bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, will help triage any questions you might have. Again, we want to reiterate, we want to make sure that everybody is doing this safely. we want to make sure that everyone is doing this safely, but we also know that outside is the safest place to be. So we want to make sure everyone has these opportunities to be outside. A couple of quick questions that just came in. First one I will answer. So if you're a restaurant wanting to expand to the curb, you have to apply for the EOD. But then we just said that you need 3 or more restaurants to apply for EOD. So please clarify. I'll clarify that. If you are looking for the closure of the street, to fully close a street down so there is no more traffic on that street, then you would need at least 3 bars or restaurants to participate. If you are just looking to expand into private property, or perhaps you're just one restaurant that wants to expand all the way to the sidewalk and allow for pedestrian traffic into the curb lane, but the street is not being closed, then you can do it with just one bar or restaurant. But if you want to close a street, that's when you need at least 3. What are the ADA requirements for closing the Sidewalk Cafe for dining and rerouting pedestrians? Brian, are you best to answer that? What are the ADA requirements when you close down the sidewalk and reroute onto the street?
Yes, so you have to provide a ramp on either end of the curb for wheelchair access, and the width is going to vary a little bit, but we generally ask for at least 6 feet for the pedestrians to access that.
Great, thank you. And thanks everyone. Thank you to all my colleagues from BACP, DCASE, CDOT, and Choose Chicago. Really appreciate getting you all in to answer all these questions that I definitely could not answer. So appreciate your time. Again, if folks have any questions, we want to make sure that everybody has all their questions answered. Please don't hesitate to reach out and we'll make sure to get those questions answered. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.